Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in time and space. Welcome to Just the Word TV, and thank you for joining our daily morning devotion. This channel is built on one mission to help you hear what God actually said, not tradition and just the word. So, we're concluding chapter 6 of Proverbs, and this particular chapter, chapter 6, focuses inwardly, right? It wasn't really a chapter about what the world does to you. It's a chapter about what you do to yourself. And the main idea of this chapter is this, that wisdom protects us from self-inflicted destruction. At first glance, chapter 6 looks like a random list of topics. It jumps from financial advice to looking at ants, then to wicked people, and finally to a warning about adultery. It seems disjointed. However, if you look closer, there is a powerful narrative here. It is a progression of how life falls apart. It starts with a lack of boundaries, impulsiveness, and it moves to a lack of discipline, laziness, festers into a twisted mindset, character corruption, and finally explodes into destructive action, which is uncontrolled desire. Solomon is showing us the anatomy of a crash so that we can hit the brakes before it's too late. So looking at section 1, this is from verses 1 to 5. So the chapter opens with a scenario that was common in the ancient world and is arguably even more common today: striking hands in pledge. In modern terms, this is co-signing a loan, guaranteeing someone else's debt, or making a rash promise to bail someone out of trouble. Solomon's warning here is urgent. He says, if you have done this, you are snared by the words of your mouth. Note the language he uses. He doesn't say you made a generous mistake. He says you walked into a trap. The principle here isn't about money, it's about emotional decisions made without wisdom. We often make impulsive commitments because we want to be liked or we feel guilty saying no. We let our emotions in the moment override the reality of our resources. We promise time we don't have, money we can't spare, and emotional energy we can't afford. Solomon's advice is incredibly practical and urgent. He doesn't say wait and see how it goes. He says go, humble yourself, and plead with your neighbor. Give your eyes no sleep. He tells you to run like a gazelle escaping a hunter. And why the urgency? Because impulsive commitments tie your future to someone else's instability. When you lack boundaries, you lose control over your own life. Wisdom requires the ability to pause, calculate the cost, and sometimes say a hard no today to avoid a disastrous yes tomorrow. And the second section that we looked at laziness and the long-term consequences. So after dealing with impulse action, Solomon pivots to the opposite problem, inaction. This is the famous passage where we are told to go to the ant. The lesson of the ant is fascinating because it focuses on self-governance. The text specifically mentions that the ant has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it gathers its food in the summer. The ant doesn't need a boss standing over it to get things done. It understands the seasons. It knows that winter is coming, so it works while it is still summer. The sluggard or the lazy person, however, lives in a state of delusion. They assume there will always be more time. Solomon asks, how long will you lie there? When will you get up? This section teaches us that laziness is not just about sleeping in, it is about a slow decay of character and capacity. It is the refusal to face the demands of reality. The most frightening part of this passage is how destruction arrives. It says poverty comes like a robber and wants like an armed man. So how does a robber come? Usually when you aren't paying attention. How does an armed man come? With force that you cannot resist. This highlights the compound interest of habits. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. It's never a huge decision to ruin your life. It's just a little neglect repeated daily. Wisdom understands that small habits create massive results over time. If you ignore the small disciplines daily, you will be overpowered by the consequences tomorrow. Then section 3 comes the full character corruption. When a person lacks boundaries and lacks discipline, their internal world begins to rot. This leads us to the worthless person or the wicked man described in verses 12 to 19. Here, Solomon explains how internal disorder produces outward destructive behavior. He describes a person who walks with a crooked mouth, winks with his eyes, signals with his feet, and points with his fingers. In the ancient world, this body language represented deception. Someone who says one thing but signals another to his accomplices. It is a picture of a person who has lost their integrity. They have become manipulative, decisive, and chaotic. This section culminates in the famous list of six things the Lord hates, seven that are abomination to him. First, haughty eyes, which is relating to arrogance, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. Notice the progression in the list itself. It moves from attitude to speech to action and finally to community destruction. This connects deeply to the previous section. A person who is too lazy to build their own life often becomes resentful of those who do. When you aren't doing the hard work of building, you often start doing the easy work of tearing others down. A lack of purpose breeds a love for drama. Wisdom warns us that if we do not discipline our minds, we become agents of chaos in our own communities. Next, section 4, looking at verses 20 to 35, where the uncontrollable desire develops. So the chapter concludes with a lengthy, intense warning against the adulterous woman or the evil woman. While the immediate context is sexual morality and infidelity, the principle applies to any uncontrolled desire. Solomon frames the commandments and teachings of wisdom as a lamp and a light. Why do you need a light? To see stumbling blocks in the dark. The core teaching here is that desire, when removed from the constraints of wisdom, is like fire. Solomon asks a rhetorical question. Can a man scoop fire into his lap without his clothes being burned? Can a man walk on hot coals without his feet being scorched? The answer is obviously no. And this challenges the lie we often tell ourselves. I can handle this. I can flirt with this danger and not get hurt. I can keep this secret habit and it won't affect my public life. Solomon is blunt. You cannot play with fire and not get burned. The text describes the cost of this uncontrolled desire. It means disgrace, the loss of wealth, and the rage of a jealous husband. It highlights that while the temptation, the smooth tongue, feels sweet in the moment, the transaction cost is your soul. And this is the final stage of self-destruction. When you have no boundaries, no discipline, and a corrupt character, you eventually surrender to your basest appetites. You trade your future for a moment of pleasure. Wisdom teaches that discipline isn't about restricting our freedom, it's about protecting us from burning down our own lives. So when we step back and view Proverbs chapter 6 as a whole, we see a clear four-stage progression of how a life goes off the rails. It rarely happens all at once, it happens in steps. First, it starts with impulsive commitments. It starts when we live based on emotion rather than reason, getting tangled into situations we didn't think through. Next is the laziness. It deepens when we refuse to do the daily hard work of maintenance and preparation, allowing entropy to take over. Third, character corruption. As we drift, our integrity crumbles. We become manipulative, dishonest, or decisive to cover our tracks or vent our frustrations. And four leads to the uncontrollable desires, where you feel like, and this is the point where people get to. They're trying to stop whatever it is that they're doing, but they're at the point where the desire has become uncontrollable. And you have to go back. You have to kind of like reverse engineer what that desire was, how it even got there in the first place. And when you look at it, it usually starts when you are, deciding that you're going to make emotions or you're going to make decisions based off of how you're feeling at that particular point in time. The whole point of wisdom, what I'm starting to understand is this. It's all about how do you operate in this world and not be tied to your emotion? Because what emotion will have you hot and heavy in that particular moment, in that particular space of time. But it doesn't let you think about the long term. It doesn't let you look at context. What what it does is makes you look at the short term. And when you look at the short term, it looks so beautiful, short term looks so good. But we don't understand that after the short term is over comes the long term consequences. So the practical message here is that wisdom protects your future by shaping your character early. You don't wait until you are holding the fire to practice wisdom. You practice it back at the end stage by building discipline, foresight, and integrity every day. So, how does it show up in our modern lives? Impulsive commitments. This is signing up for a high interest credit card to buy things you can't afford, or agreeing to take on a massive project at work just because you were afraid to look unhelpful, only to burn out later. Application here is practice the 24-hour rule before making big promises. One thing that I've been doing so far that I've been trying to do anyway, I asked for 24 hours. And why I ask for 24 hours is because I want to make sure that I'm able to actually help. Um, People, and I'm using myself as an example, people see that I'm able to do particular things and they jump at it. Or they jump at the first sign of, you know what, we're gonna get Justin to do this at the X, Y, and Z. Not understanding that Justin is too helpful. Justin is over helpful. And sometimes Justin will take on a project and Justin will not be able to help you out. And only for me to understand this, that I did not, I just did not want to seem like as if many times in the past I've been told that I'm not helpful enough. So I guess it stems from that particular thing. Now at this particular point in time, I'm only going to give out help if I'm able to help. And if you are not understanding of that, I personally don't care anymore. Um, why I don't care is because I know what it looks like when you are overextending yourself and what happens afterwards. That you're dealing with the long-term consequences of that overextension, and the person who you overextended yourself for, they're nowhere to be found. They're nowhere to be found. So what I try to do as best as I possibly can, I try not to put myself in situations that require too much work out of me, or that requires me to overextend myself. And sometimes going about it has not been great, but I am still learning. I am still learning, and I'm still trying to come about this the best way as I possibly can. To have people understand that although I may want to help, if you don't give me an opportunity to think about it first, if you don't give me an opportunity to think about a particular a particular situation, an action, a project that you want me to be a part of, you don't give me time to think. Most often, most times, the work that you're going to get out of me is going to be lackluster. It's going to be absolute BS. Why? Because you didn't give me that opportunity to see if I can actually help you. Sometimes I need that at that time to see and look at my current situation to see, okay, this is something that someone wants me to come and be a part of. Am I able to do this or am I not able to do this? And a lot of times in the past, I was never given time to think about if this is something that I want to do. So now I personally do not care. If I'm able to help you, I'm able to help you. If I'm not able to help you, I'm not able to help you. But if you don't give me time to think, it's an automatic no. Next is the laziness. This isn't just sleeping late. It's doom scrolling on your phone for 2 hours instead of cleaning your house or working on that certification you promised to get. It's knowing you need to have a tough conversation with your spouse, but putting it off until the marriage is in crisis. The application here is do the hardest thing on your to-do list first. And what laziness tends to do is it allows things to fester. So for example, that tough conversation that you were supposed to have with your spouse, but you're putting it off, right? It makes no sense to start talking about that, it makes no sense to have that tough conversation when the marriage is in crisis. I mean, because the marriage is now in crisis, probably due to the fact of you putting off these important conversations. Because if you put off one important conversation, one tough conversation, how many other tough conversations have you put off already? Right? One tough conversation, how many others have you been putting off? Meaning that you've been allowing the problems of your marriage to fester and fester and fester and fester. And now you want to wait until it actually explodes to try to do something about it. Sorry to say, but once the volcano explodes, ain't nothing you can do but run. Ain't nothing you can do but run. So do the hardest thing first. Take care of those things that seem difficult at first so that it doesn't spill over into your life later on. Because it's going to lead to character corruption, right? And it shows up in office gossip, right? When you decide that you're going to put things off, it starts to corrupt your character. And it shows up again in office gossip. It appears when we twist the truth slightly to make ourselves look better, or when we enjoy seeing a rival fall. The application here is to refuse to participate in conversations that tear others down, right? And you might be thinking, well, how does laziness lead to character corruption? If you are if you are too lazy to act upon things that need to be acted upon now, right? You're too lazy to do it. You're going to be looking for every shortcut possible now. It's going to be indirect, right? It's going to show up in your work. It's going to show up in your character. Now, instead of doing the hard work, doing the hard thing first, you're going to see, well, what is the best way I can manipulate this person to do it for me? So I don't have to do it because now it's too late. It's obviously too late, but I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to go through all of this problems, all of this trouble just to get it done. So how can I manipulate the situation? That is where the character corruption comes in. And then after the character corruption comes the uncontrollable desire. And this is when it sets in. This is when now you're just walking around and you're just operating out of that corruption, operating out of that corruption subconsciously because you've allowed your mind to be constantly be renewed through corruption, renewed through laziness. So this is the affair. But there's also the addiction to pornography, gambling, or even rage. It's seeking comfort in things that ultimately destroy you. And the application here is to identify your fire and build boundaries far away from it. Don't see how close you can get to it. You need to understand this. The human nature is weak. Human nature is weak. No matter how much willpower you decide that you're going to build up for yourself, no matter how much mental willpower you're going to build up, you decide that you're going to build up for yourself humanly, we still need God when it comes to dealing with the things of life. We need to take we need to be very honest with ourselves and see and understand that we are not as strong as we think, right? We are weak. There's a weakness within us. But if we understand our and are aware of that weakness, this is where we can allow God to step in and give us strength. But if you're constantly going around and you're delusional to the fact that you know what, I'm kind of weak in this lust area, I'm weak in this rage area, I'm weak in this greedy area. Now God is going to be able to say, you know what? He's aware of the fact that he's weak with lust. So you know what? Let me pour some strength into him, so that when these temptations starts to come around, he understands and he has the wisdom to know. Okay, this is a lustful engagement. This is a lustful interaction. Let me back off. When met with when you understand that you're weak in greed, now you're allowing God to give you the strength that when you're met with temptations to be greedy that you're allowing God's wisdom to come forth. You're allowing God's wisdom to present itself, so that you can fight that greediness. So here's the thing that we have to understand with chapter 6. It invites us to take an honest inventory of our lives. Are there traps you set for yourself? Are there areas where you are sleeping while you should be working? Wisdom is the wake-up call. It reminds us that we are the architects of our own lives, and by God's grace and wisdom, we can build a structure that stands firm rather than one that collapses on top of us. So, I hope that this is just a recap of what we've gone through. If by chance you weren't able to get through or able to see the devotions prior, this just gives us a great recap of what Proverbs chapter 6 is supposed to give us. And what it tells us is the progression of how a character and how you develop uncontrollable desires. And what it starts with, what it starts with is emotional decision making. That is the root to what Solomon is trying to understand. The root to good character development or bad character development all rests in the fact of, are you making emotional decisions, or are you making decisions based off of what God's wisdom is telling you? Um, it's It stems from the fact that when we make emotional decisions or we start to put emotion into things, it pushes us away from the wisdom that God has for us. It pushes us away from the path that God has for us. So the roots cause to any character corruption is due to the fact that that particular person may have started to make decisions based off of emotion. And let's think about it. It's super easy, right? It's super easy to start that emotional thinking, that the emotional decision making. Let someone betray you. Let someone abuse you. Let someone do anything to you where emotion starts to come out. You're gonna do is start making emotional decisions. And what's crazy is if you don't deal with that trauma when it happens, right? That betrayal, whatever it is, now you're operating out of that. You're operating out of that emotional feeling. So all of your emotions, all of your decisions, I should say, are operating from from emotional trauma, an emotional trauma that you did not take care of. So someone comes and they're trying to interact with you, right? But they can't interact with you properly because of the fact that you have this emotional trauma. So they do something or they say something and they have no intention on harming you. But because of your emotional trauma, because of the fact that you didn't take care of it, you are now responding back to them in that emotion, right? It might be something completely defensive where you become hostile, right? Do you see where I'm going with this? It all starts with that that thinking that you are to operate out of emotion. But what God is trying to tell us, and what Solomon is trying to tell us as well, operating out of your emotions leads to you developing uncontrollable desires. It leads to a character corruption. It leads to laziness because emotion will tell you, you know what? I don't feel like doing this today. You know what? I'm too tired to do this today. Emotion will tell you, oh, you know what? It's too early in the morning, Justin. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why are you up in the morning, even trying to write a devotion, even thinking about writing a devotion? Right? That's what emotion tells me every morning. Can I tell you, every morning is a struggle? Every morning is a struggle. Every morning is a struggle to get up because I'm fighting my emotion. I'm fighting that human nature that's telling me you are absolutely crazy doing a daily devotion. Each day, every morning, you are absolutely out of your mind doing a daily devotion. No one else is doing this. Um, Other people are gaining more traction on the content that they're creating. You're barely getting any views, Justin. What are you doing? Why are you still waking up and doing this? Every morning, I have to tell myself, but by the grace of God, if it be your will, God, please let it be done. If this is your will, let it be done. Don't pay attention to my emotional response. Don't pay attention to it at all. I understand that I am operating and I'm trying to operate out of emotion. But what you have been teaching me over these past 2 years or so that I've been doing these devotions, some of them have been with the church privately, and now I've started to do it on YouTube itself. What I've been learning is stick to itiveness. Um, no matter what. Stick to itiveness, being committed to something. Once you know that you are staying committed to it, sticking to it no matter what. So I hope that you're able to gain some insight. I hope that you're able to gain some tools. I hope that you're able to see the progression on it can start with something as simple as someone sliding you in some weird way. And because they slided you, you feel this emotion and now you're operating out of that emotion. It could be something super small and it just snowballs and snowballs to the point where you are trying to figure out why do you have this uncontrollable desire that you just can't get rid of. So until next time, we're going to be next time we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 7 and understanding the connection between Proverbs chapter 7 and Proverbs chapter 6. So until next time, stay grounded, stay humbled, and above all else, stay aligned with just the word. Thank you.